Okay, so we're going to look at answering ordinary share capital. For those who are looking for this question paper, it is your February-March 2018 grade 12 question paper, Department of Education, that is Gauteng. So we're going to be looking at answering ordinary share capital, this right here. And then remember, ordinary share capital is just the shares that we have given to people outside, right? So we have our information here that is telling us what we need to do. Then we can just go on ahead. We have our balances here with everything there, and then here's the information regarding share capital. So I'm going to start there. Share capital, the business has authorized share capital of 6 million shares, right? Authorized shares just means that is the amount of shares that they're allowed to give to the public, right? Doesn't mean that's how much that they actually gave. 70% of the shares were in issue on 1 July 2016. This is what we're looking for. 70% were in issue. So if we say 6 million there, 6 million multiplied by 70%, you should get 4,200,000 shares. So that there is the amount of shares that we have in issue. So we have issued 4,200,000 shares, right? And then here you can just say balance on the specific date. I'm just going to say balance at beginning, right, to make things easier for myself. Now, did they give us the amount of the shares, the rand value? They didn't, right? Here in the last point, they're just moving on to say shares were repurchased. So what we do is we look at our extract, but now this extract tells us it's from June 2017. This is the end of the financial year, right? End of the financial year. Remember, always have your financial year, right? So June, no, it starts in July 2016. 2016 ends in June 2017. So you must always know when your financial year ends, when it also starts. Moving on, we have our first line, fixed assets, fixed deposit, ordinary share capital on 1 July 2016. So that would be right here at the beginning of the financial year. And that is how much? 3,150,000. So there we have it at 3,150,000. So we have our beginning 4,200,000 shares in issue, and their value is 3,150,000, right? Moving on to the next point. Here they tell us that 60,000 ordinary shares were repurchased from a disgruntled shareholder on 1 December 2016. The company paid R3.50 per share. This was paid and recorded on 1 December 2016, meaning that now we have to now figure out how much. Remember, when shares are bought back, when the company repurchases shares, we repurchase shares at an amount. Purchase shares at an amount, right? But now this amount is divided into two. There's going to be an amount that goes to ordinary share capital, and this is going to be the average amount of the shares that we currently hold, right? This amount here. And then the rest of it is going to go to retained income, right? So how does that make sense? They say to us that they bought it for R3.50 per share. So 3 rand 50 cents, that's the repurchase value. That's the total that we're going to pay out, multiplied by how many shares was it? 60,000 shares there. So it's going to be 3 rand 50 multiplied by 60,000 shares. But now we want to know how much specifically goes to the ordinary share capital, and we find that by finding the average for ordinary share capital. Now, how do we find the average? We say the rand value of shares divided by the number of shares, right? And that there is going to give us our average. So now we already have our rand value. This is our rand value here, and that is the number of shares. So all we say is 3,150,000. Sorry, 150,000 divided by 4,200,000, and that gives us an average of 0.75. So the average share price in our portfolio cost 75 cents. Now we're not going to pay more than what the ordinary share capital average is. So from the ordinary share capital, we're going to say 0.75 multiplied by 60,000 shares, and that equals to 45,000 shares. Right, that's the amount that's going to come out here. Right, so to just show you how all of this works, in total 350 multiplied by 60,000 shares, that should give us 210,000 rand. Right, now retained earnings, remember I said that this repurchased value is going to be divided into two, right? So we already have the 0.75, but we don't have how much the retained income is. So to get that, we're simply going to say 3 rand 50, which is the full price, minus the amount that was paid for ordinary share capital, the average for ordinary share capital, and then we have 2 rand 75. Then this 2 rand 75 represents this 2 rand 75 represents how much one share is going to bought back by the amount in retained earnings, and we multiply this amount by 60,000 also, and then we get our full amount of 165,000. So if you add 45,000 and 165,000, it should give you 210,000, right? So going back to answering this question, we bought back how many shares? 60,000 shares. Sorry, we bought back 60,000 shares. And then you can say buyback or repurchase of shares, but usually saying share buyback is better, right? Repurchase of shares, and then for how much? For 45,000 rand. 45,000 rand. Therefore, we have a balance at the end of 3,105,000 rand, and that side we have how many shares in issue? 4,140,000 shares in issue. And then here your description can be balance at the end, or you can just say balance at the specific date. But that is how you do your ordinary share capital, right? Now if you're wondering how you draw this up in your general general ledger, their ordinary share capital. Remember, it's owner's equity, so decreases on the debit, increases on the credit. Then we're gonna have our balance there at the beginning, which is 3,150,000 rand, and we're going to have our repurchase of shares, repurchase there for 45,000 rand. Then we're going to have our which side is bigger, the 3,150,000, of course. Take it to the other side, 3,150,000. And then what must you subtract from 3,150,000 to get 45,000? 3,105,000. Then that is going to be your balance carried down. This side is your balance brought down of 3,105,000. Right? So please, the big thing that I want you to be sure of is that this side, always the number of shares that you have in issue. This side, it's the rand value of the shares that you have in issue. Right? Never mix them up. Whatever is this side must stay this side, and whatever is this side must stay this side. Because if you mix these two up, you are going to come out with a wrong answer, and you will not be able to score these 8 marks. Right? Looks like free 8 marks, but just be careful.